Hey everyone, welcome to Fast Forward, the podcast about real conversations, not highlight reels. We go beyond tactics and talk about the people behind the work, how they think, what drives them, and how they grow. This is a space for honest stories from real founders. Today, I am joined by Danny Gavin, founder and chief strategist of Optidge, host of the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast, and creator of the ODO Academy. Danny, how are you?
So great. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, so we'll kick it off with like an origin story, kind of what early experiences or parts of your personality pulled you toward digital marketing in the first place and eventually building your own agency.
Yeah, so it's a long story, so we'll try to keep it short. But
Yeah,
I like to say I was born in South Africa and my parents immigrated to the United States when I was 6 months old. So straight to Houston, Texas, out of all places. And
very different
so
than South Africa.
very different. Both South, but different types of
That's
barbecue,
true.
let's just say.
That's true.
And, so I grew up in an immigrant family. I think my dad came with like $2,000 in his pocket and really like understood what it meant to work hard and not necessarily getting everything I want. Like I remember going into Target as a kid and like going to the toy aisle and like seeing that like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figure and like really, really wanting it. But my mom saying, hey, can't really get it this time. I had that sort of those moments where I didn't necessarily get everything I needed or needed
Right.
it actually. Needed, yes. My parents definitely gave me what I needed. What I
Sure.
wanted is a little bit different. And then what's pretty cool is in the late 90s, I actually started, playing around with HTML and GeoCities. Started actually programmed my elementary middle school's first website in around 98, 99. And then around the same time, my parents, my dad, he's actually a fifth generation diamantaire. My family's been in the diamond industry for many years. He actually went online in 99 with his first website, early days. So I really, as I'm stepping into high school, I've already started to like build my own websites. My parents have a website and, it's digital and sort of I really started growing up and, those were the discussions around the table and, what we spoke about. So fast forward, I actually went to rabbinical high school and college. So during that time, I kind of stayed away from tech and from marketing. And
Right.
I would say learning marketing in other ways, but not from a digital perspective. And then, I did that more for my spirit, for my life, to find out who I was, more about my religion and what I wanted to do. But it wasn't about necessarily my path of where I was going to be making my money. And so when I graduated that, it was a wonderful experience. Took me all over the world. One really cool. I went to the University of Houston and studied my MBA, focused in marketing as well as consulting. And during that time, I made sure to take really practical courses where I was like either learning tools or like
Mhm.
real life projects with businesses. And during that time, I had a really good internship at one of the top e-commerce companies in Houston called blinds.com. Years later, they were bought up by Home Depot, one of Houston's really big success stories.
I've
So
actually
that
used it.
was a Awesome. And so that was a turning point. I think that was where like, okay, I want to do this. I love it and professional. So graduated, didn't get that six-figure corporate
Right.
job that you think you get when you get an MBA. But I started consulting, building up my business, helped my parents' business a bit at that time. And then over time, yeah, like my consultancy grew. 2017 decided to say, I'm going to turn this into an agency. And about 7, 8 years later, we have an agency of over or close to 40 people, which is really amazing. And then on the educational side, I was invited back by the university 5 years later in 2015 to teach um, master's level digital marketing. So basically
Wow.
teaching the people that I was 5 years earlier. So I've been doing that for 10 years. And then how Odeo spurred from that was during COVID, I realized, hey, these classes that I'm giving at university, they're kind of moving online anyhow. Why not
Mm.
come up with a format where I can reach more people and teach more people? So often a lot of my target market are women who have children or aren't happy with their job. And often I'm opening up their eyes to this amazing world of digital marketing so that they can pivot into something really more meaningful and hopefully can also earn them more money.
Okay, so that's what the academy is about is like is educational the perspective on digital marketing.
Exactly.
Okay. And it sounds like you've been able to kind of figure out whatever you want to do at any stage of your life. When you learned HTML when you were in the 90s, how did you even like was it something about how you approach that? Like how did you teach yourself? Because you were still in school, obviously. And it
Yeah,
probably wasn't a part of the curriculum at that time in the world.
right. Not at all. we got a computer pretty early, a Power Mac, and we went on the internet using AOL pretty early. I think there was actually, even before AOL, there was eWorld, which was Apple's type of online sphere.
I don't
So
know.
I was just naturally spending a lot of time. And I think I might have even had a friend, an older friend, who might have started HTML first. And he was like, "Hey, Danny, check this out. Look what I built." And yeah, I mean, I think it was literally just early days of, I mean, Google wasn't around back then, but there were other search engines. And it was just kind of, getting these website builders and learning a little bit of HTML here and there. So yeah, look, I wasn't a full-on programmer, but enough to
No, of
like
course
actually
not. Yeah.
create like this, relatively decent site, at least for back
Yeah.
then, which has information about the school and different pages and yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to kind of get into your mind and how you're able to set your mind to something and actually see it through and accomplish it. And it seems like maybe curiosity is the main driver of starting something, and then you have the wherewithal to stick with it. That's the part what entrepreneurs struggle with. I think a lot of times is like they might like have an initial instinct to do something, approach it and go for it, but then they don't have the fortitude to stay with it.
Yeah, you know what I think helps? Ever since I've been a kid, I've always been the guy who like has to get hundreds on his test, has to study, has to be the best at what I'm doing.
Mm,
And when I'm not, I push myself to do more. And
mm.
maybe some might have called me a geek or a nerd when I was younger because like I had to get the highest, or and not to push people to the side, but I would say in my earlier days, like in elementary and middle, in some ways it was like I've got to do whatever I need to do. Sometimes trampling people on the way, and over time learned that's not the way to do it at all. But
Mm.
yeah, I've had a lot of ups and downs because like imagine you're the school president in 8th grade of student council and you're like the most popular kid, and then suddenly go to high school. And I went to a boarding school in California, and there were like 20 kids who all like grew up together, and there were like 5 out of towners. And man, I humbled.
Holy
I
crap.
was literally like going from like the top to the bottom. And I've had many moments in my life there where it's like, it's good because I've been tested. I kind of had to restart different times and then build myself back up, which is kind of interesting.
Right. And that's the fortitude I'm talking about. So really it wasn't curiosity, it was more like competitiveness within yourself. Like you wanted to do something, not necessarily, well, at some point you were tramping on others because you had that like desire to win, but then you realized that you can just be competitive with yourself maybe, and
Exactly.
that was enough to take you where you wanted to go. Okay, that's a good lesson, I think, for any entrepreneur to learn, because taking that step beyond initial instinct and desire is something that's harder to accomplish.
Yeah, we all have a lot of good ideas, but the
That's what
question
I
is,
mean.
all right, yeah,
Like what's Michael Jordan, he always found a way to find reason to be better even though he was already the best. So whoever like any news article he read was something that he utilized for himself to propel himself in basketball, as an example. Okay, so it was about 15 years ago you launched Optidge. Was there a moment when you realized you could create a different kind of agency, one centered on clarity, mentorship, and long-term client relationships?
so interestingly enough, pre going to getting my MBA, my goal was I actually wanted to get a master's of education and to be like maybe a high school principal or education. And I decided at that point, it was actually as well, I was dating my wife, realizing that for the type of life that we wanted to live, although that would have been very meaningful, it may not have allowed us to reach the goals that we wanted to. Kind of like a reality check. And that was totally fine. But naturally, I'm an innate teacher. I love to teach people and do what I need to do, and get, so not only do I get the joy of teaching, but then also seeing and people grow is just tremendous. So I've always had that string inside of me. And so naturally, whether I was being a consultant or building the agency, there's always been this point of not just doing things for people, but explaining to them why, showing them how, raising them
Mm,
up. And then it's just natural as you're starting to create an agency, you are employing people who really, like I remember my first hire is a guy, Joseph Wolf, who happens to be still with me 8 years later. And he's the head of our paid media department. And he came in, and why did we hire him? Because he was so excited in that interview and so passionate. Did he have a lot of experience? Maybe here and there, but that passion was like, wow, that's great. And then now, okay, months 2 later, we're coming in, we're starting to build this agency. We're starting to get these people who want us to run these crazy campaigns related to Kickstarter. How do we create an audience before we launch a product? And we never did it before, but we're sitting there, we're figuring it out, we're learning. And, I remember the day when, I was scared for him to present to a client. But then
Mm,
eventually it got to that point where he learned and he was really great. I was like, okay, man, now you're on your own, right? You can do it. And it's just awesome to be able to be part of the growth cycle of different people. So that mentorship, so me teaching and having an agency where we're teaching and teaching clients, it's really like the theme, right? And it's sort of like, so often in life, we get more when we give. And two, you actually learn things and understand things better when you're able to teach it. And that when I'm able to give something over to someone else, that means that I really understand it. So when
mm.
I can put myself in that situation as much as possible, it actually helps me become a better master at what I do.
That's so true. I know that, I don't like to speak on a topic unless I'm really confident in what I know about it. And if I'm training someone that's actually employed for me, that's something entirely different. You're really better. You have to know what you're saying. And for them to articulate what you're putting together is an important part of it. So that's cool that you're able to, come from consulting and get into more of a leadership role and then utilize what your skill set and apply it to running a company. Really cool. Okay, so you often say that everyone has the same tools, but not everyone has the same thinking. What core principles guide your approach to SEO and modern digital strategy in a world where AI has leveled the playing field?
Ooh.
Well,
So
that's an opinion.
yeah, we're in the Wild West right now.
No kidding.
And some people think, oh my gosh, it's crazy. We've never been here before. But honestly, let's step back like 20, 25 years where there was a world where we had a Google, a Lycos, an AltaVista, a Yahoo, all these different search engines, the early days of SEO, and each one worked a little bit differently. And at that point, no one really like, which one do we look at? How do we optimize? Who's going to be the winner, right? And it must have been very confusing back then. I was a rabbinical student, so I don't really remember that specific time. But the bottom line is that some of the people that I look up to, my mentors, tell me about those times, and they were very confusing. And we're in the same time. We've got Gemini and we've got ChatGPT and Perplexity, and each one has their own thing. And it's a dynamic shift of we used to optimize websites to show up for Google, a static list of 10 links, and now we're suddenly working with these LLMs that are generating answers on the fly, and how do I even track when I show up? So man, it's crazy.
That is crazy.
So anyone who tells you I know exactly what to do, or even have these ads that are like, oh, we know exactly what's going on, I'm not saying it's not true, but like there's there definitely is there's work to be done. We're not there yet to know exactly what's going on. So that being said, in the world of SEO today, I think we are sort of like, kind of like I was speaking about my life story, or most people's life stories. We've got highs and lows. I think we're at a point now where things aren't super clear, and the winners are the ones who are testing, who are trying out, and therefore they are going to be able to figure out what to do and what's going, because there aren't any guidelines. Now,
Right.
in truth, a lot of people saying there's two separate things. There's SEO and then there's AIO or AG, whatever. There's many different for what it is for optimizing for AI. But so a lot of the fundamental principles apply still the same. Now, it doesn't mean that if you do things exactly the same way, you're going to show up. It's a little bit different. One, I would say a major difference is with SEO, and specifically for ranking on Google, one of the factors that was really important were other websites linking back to your website. And that link was of a vote of confidence. Not all votes are equal. If I've got a link from the New York Times, that's much more valuable than, Joe's blog from, a Little League blog that talks about my business. These days, when it comes to LLMs and to AI, they are looking not just at places that link to you, but places that are talking about you. So meaning even just the places talking about me, they're considering that. And therefore, I'll give an example, a company that I saw that they do a really good job and they do a certain type of therapy for children. But you know what? They've got a review on Indeed, which is a job application site, where someone there left a review. That's not such a great place to work because they don't provide a lot of training. That bad review, which has nothing to do with actual therapy, but actually influenced the results on one of the LLMs so that it's not the number one choice. And that's crazy to think. That's like, wow, man. So like there are things going around me. People are saying things about me, and that's going to affect how I show up. So
Interesting.
so
So it's what we know about the LLMs and how they utilize machine learning, they're actually going into sites now and repurposing the information they read in terms of how they display the search results on whatever it may be brands. Yeah,
100%. So just remember that
that's crazy.
it depends the AI that you're using, but some LLMs purely work off the training data. So sort of like the library that they have access to. And then other LLMs will go ahead and are going to use live, like Google search data. And then others, often which is ChatGPT, depending
Yeah.
on the question that people ask, might choose to go to the live web data, maybe get a little bit of LLM, decide when each one is possible. But yeah, but basically, um, yeah, so there's a lot of power in these automated tools to show different things. And it really depends on like how they see the grand picture and what people are saying. And then also knowing you, like they know Danny Gavin is this type of person. And therefore, when I answer him, I most probably will tailor the results knowing more of who he is and what he wants.
That's fascinating. I feel like a review has never been more important for companies, for any company, not just storefronts, but you can go onto Glassdoor and review, your working experience, and that's going to affect how the language models will interpret it. And it's a little scary, but it's good. It's accurate to an
Yeah,
extent.
I don't know if you watch the TV show Black Mirror on
Yeah,
Netflix.
of
But
course.
it reminds me of that one episode where like that lady has to get a certain amount of stars and likes, and if she doesn't, she can't live in her apartment,
The
and then like
rating.
she ends up, yeah, her rating, and it is scary, and people can use it in a bad way. But on the other hand, let's look at the positive. The positive is we're bringing back the real concept of business and doing well. And what that means is like you can't hide anymore. Like you really have to be a good company, right? I can't just be, excuse my
That's a good
French, a
point.
half-ass company, but I really have to do a good job and strive. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah, it adds additional pressures, but is it really
Hmm.
bad that there's an additional pressure for every company to actually be good and to
Hmm.
actually do good things and have good service? I think that's a positive pressure, you know?
Yeah, you can't just, for some of the bigger companies, the Fortune 500 companies, you can't just throw money at it. You actually need to be um, resolute and within your image, your identity that actually translates to the outside world. You can't just say, "Oh, we'll cover this up." Now everyone's susceptible to this same thing.
So when we talk about like in religion, the concept of David versus Goliath and leveling the playing field, in a way, this has leveled the playing field again from the sense that we all have that opportunity and clarity, or sorry, there's the transparency
Hmm.
for every business. And we
Right.
all need to do a good job. Just because I'm larger or have more money, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be able to cover something up more.
And this must be something that you convey to your clients because this is going to potentially affect your strategy for them if they're getting bad reviews outside of what you're doing for them in digital marketing.
Yeah, 100%. It's pushing even more the idea of getting positive reviews and trying to get those from your customers. Also, maybe looking at certain websites that you didn't find important, but because the LLMs are looking at them. Like, I'll give an example. A hot spot for LLMs are Reddit, so
Really?
maybe yeah, maybe as a business, I've never looked at Reddit, but let's see what people are actually saying on Reddit about me, or it's not just the bad. It's also like if people are talking, if giving recommendations for certain companies and you're not one of them, that's also a bad thing, right? So we have to look at also what are the places that the LLMs are looking at, and then are we there as well, and how are we spoken about? And yes, so it requires more awareness and more action.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's a good thing long term because now businesses are forced to be aware of all the possibilities out there and every customer review or just experience that they may have had could affect their their long-term outreach potential to new clientele.
Right. So I think it's good, but we also have to remember like our small businesses who
Yeah.
don't, who are growing, may not have enough resources. I think it's going to be a little bit harder. It's a little
You
bit
think
harder
so?
for them. And that's why I think there are some people who, with any sort of marketing, I think what's really important is it's important to have a diversified portfolio or strategy. And that means that you never want to rely on one channel alone.
Hmm.
Because what if that channel were to go today? Just relying on organic traffic, just relying on LLM traffic. It's not a good idea. a lot of people are thinking about, okay, if let's say I really relied on SEO, really on organic traffic, maybe I need to look into paid advertising now, or maybe I need to come into referral programs or other ways. And I think this happens every so often. It's kind of like a good example would be Facebook a couple of years ago. When you built a Facebook page and you had followers, when you put out a new post, every follower saw that. And then Facebook came along and said, hey, no more. If you want to reach your own followers, you got to boost. You got to pay money for them to see it.
Mm,
And it was kind of like, oh my gosh, if I built my whole business on a platform that I don't own, and now they're changing the
mm.
rules, I can be in trouble. And I remember, I think at that time, the former owner of the Dallas Mavericks, why can't I think of his name right now?
Former Cuban.
Yeah, Mark Cuban. Well, I mean,
I'm
he's
in
a minor.
Dallas,
Oh,
so I
awesome.
better know
So
that.
he's he's a minority owner now. But yeah,
Right.
but Mark right away he said, "We're not doing anything with Facebook anymore. Like, sorry, man, we're not supporting you. Look what you did." And like he basically went off of it.
Wasn't
But
aware
yeah,
of
so
that.
just so it's just the other reminder I get from like the AI and the LLM sort of revolution, specifically when it comes to search, is it's just a good reminder in general for business as an entrepreneur. We need to try to find ways to diversify where we're getting our traffic from, where we're getting our leads from. It's just like I wouldn't go to the stock market and put all my money into Palantir, and I wouldn't put all my money into Nvidia because yeah, it might look good for a while, but then what's that one day and it just drops, then I got problems. And we have to look at marketing the same way.
Right. Yeah, it's something you got to be aware of in every angle now, especially.
Yes.
So we talked about AI. How are you utilizing it for your own business? And other than the large language models and how they display our results in terms of whatever client to business relation, what have you noticed and where do you see the industry going in 3 to 5 years?
So it's a lot of questions. So I'll say, first of all, in our company, in our agency, we're trying to integrate it more. But the way that we approach it is let us find things that take us a long time to do, multiple steps. And is there any way that we can shorten it by adding AI in at certain points to bring down the time that it takes? So I'm not even saying, hey, like throw out the whole process and let AI do it, but it's really small steps first, because to go and like change everything in 1 second doesn't work. So that's one way we're approaching. So a good example would be we've found a really good way to use AI that before, let's say we've signed a new client and we're about to have our kickoff call. We have a really cool AI prompt that's connected to get with a deck builder, and it basically does a deep dive of who that client is, who's their customer, potential messaging strategies, creative strategies, and it basically like generates it in under, right, let's say 30 seconds. Now, look, it's not perfect, but you know what? With me coming to that meeting with that new client and going through this deck, that might be, let's say it's 75% true, but it's a very different discussion, right? Like
Yeah.
it looks like we've done our research. We have a jumping off point to talk. There may be some differentiations, but when we do that, we'll understand who you are. And man, if I could prepare that in 30 seconds, dude, that's amazing, right? So
That's
that's a that's
gold.
a that's a good example. Another example is personally in my life, being an agency founder and the chief strategy officer, I'm really busy. So I often will get in between phone calls, I'll get lost in my email box. So what I figured out is a really cool system that AI assists me with, where I get every single email that comes into my box, AI reviews and ranks it either as a high, medium, and low. And then also, whether it's spam or things like that. And anything that's high priority, and when high priority usually means that it needs to be responded to, let's say within an hour, I actually get a text message on my phone that says, hey, Danny, you have a really important email. So I've basically created a system where I don't need to be worried about checking my email all the time, because now anything that's really, really important, I will get notified. And I know that sounds like very basic, but a basic thing like that like really makes a big difference for me.
Yeah.
It saves me time throughout the day. And so little things like that can really, help.
So is it a dashboard or is it something that sits on top of your email
Sure. I'd be happy to
client?
explain you the tech behind it. So
Sounds interesting.
yeah, so I use Zapier. Zapier is an
Okay. Yeah.
automation workflow. It connects one system to another, and that was there even before AI. And basically what it does is every time an email comes in my box, it causes this Zap workflow to start. And then in there I have an AI analysis step where I write an in-depth prompt of who I am and how I look at each email and how I want to categorize it. And then therefore the AI then reviews that email, and then
Mm,
based off of the result, different things happen. I might get a Slack message about one thing. I might get a text message about another. If I made it even better, I'd be like, can I unsubscribe automatically? Which I think we could
Yeah,
figure.
that's the golden ticket.
And obviously I could figure it out, right? So what I'm saying is this is not any magic, right? It's literally taking a tool that existed for years, but now I can add in an AI step, right?
Hmm.
Because technically, if I didn't have that AI step, I could create like a programming logic using
Yeah,
JavaScript. But I don't even
rules,
have to do that anymore. I just go ahead and write up a natural
plain
language
English. Yeah.
discussion and it does it for me. And because I'm able to, and then at the end, I connect it to that simple text message, which I'll get on my phone. So it's not rocket science. It's just, once again, it's really having the awareness of finding those things in your life that are sucking your time or problems. And are there ways that I can just shorten it to create more space to do the things that I really need to do and the really things that I really want to do?
Yeah, automation is incredible. And if you can get off even one manual input a day, you're saving yourself so much time and headaches. And that's email is, I think, the number one thing for most people these days.
Totally.
No question. Cool. So, yeah, so like if we jump forward 3 to 5 years, what do you see for the next chapter of Optidge and your personal mission in a world rapidly shaped by AI and new technologies by the minute, it seems?
Yeah. So I think with Optidge, obviously AI is a big component. And therefore, within our own organization, like I said, we're looking to automate things. Moving forward, yeah, I think we are going to get to a point where the agency model is going to be different, right? Because a lot of the things that we do today can be done by AI. But still, you're going to need the brains and the logic and the thought behind it. And I think that leaning more into the consultancy, leaning more into the education, leaning more into the experts and not just the fulfillment team is going to be really important moving forward. Because, like I said, if you're just the one who's doing the work, then there may be someone who's going to be able to do it better than you, i.e., your Mr. Friend, ChatGPT, or LLM or AI, whatever that is. But we're still going to need that strategic mindset. How do we approach something? How do we use different tools together? How do we optimize? Because I think even now, like, I mean, eventually, who knows, 50, 100 years from now, yes, like
Well, yeah,
everything will totally be obsolete. But I still think, bottom line is, even like with the AI we're seeing in certain ad platforms where technically it's doing better, it doesn't understand the business as well as the human does. And you still need the puppet master behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So I just think we have to keep, no one, like agencies can't have their blinders on. Yes, this is coming and certain things will be able to be cheaper, easier to do with AI, but there still is a world where our value is required and necessary. And it's important that we lean into that, making sure that our employees are educated on how to use AI and to, create automations and to look at problems a little bit differently. So that's where I see 3 to 5 years where it's going, but a lot can happen during that time. I don't know. I take
No
day
question.
by day, but looking a year in advance to kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, you need to stay in the present best you can, at least, and keep climbing the mountain of information because if you stop, you never know. It might be too late. You can fall behind pretty easily these days.
Yeah, it's like when you climb the mountain, that's what we talk about an actual mountain, where if you don't continue moving, you'll actually slide down, right?
Exactly.
And that's the problem. So that's why we have to always keep pushing ourselves. And that's in business, it's in life, and it's everything we do.
Yeah,
We have to keep growing. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about being humans. Because if we don't, it's not that we're just stagnant, but we actually start to stagnate and to decrease and get
exactly.
worse.
And I think because of the buzzword of AI, I think some people turn off from it, thinking that it's just some shortcut to, take jobs from designers or just to be lazy. And I really try to convey to people that that's really not how you should look at it. And if you are doing it that way, then you're using it completely wrong. It is a tool to assist you in becoming better at what you do at your craft. If you're an entrepreneur, there are so many ways to learn things now about what you want to do and see if it's even feasible. And it's for that reason alone, I think it's an incredible tool. And if you're looking at it any other way, it's just not the right way to approach it. So it's hard to convey to everyone, but I mean, I think you and I know that it's the way to go.
It's just there's a lot of noise out there, and then sometimes it's overwhelming, and therefore it's easier sometimes just to shut your blinds,
Yeah.
right? To look at it.
But you end up doing yourself a disservice because you're just working in a manual world and you're still doing as much work as you've ever done, no matter what you're doing.
100%. And there's going to be 10 other people out there who are going to be doing it, still have jobs, but they're doing it a lot faster and quicker
That's
and
what I
therefore,
mean.
yeah, it's not going to, and it's just going to then you will be the one who won't have a job. Not because AI replaced you, it's because someone who's using AI will replace you.
That's it. Yeah, whenever I see a student coming out of school, I talk to them about how important it is to not to you look at it that way, because I think in education especially, students are seeing shortcuts. They don't want to do papers. They don't want to write anything. They want answers, like any other typical university student. You really should be thinking about it. How is this going to help me in whatever career path I want to take? And that's how you want to invest your time into, do the research on that specifically. Don't just do it because you're, not in the mood to study this subject or history or whatever it may be.
That's why schools, Jeffrey, have to be incorporating it more into their curriculum and into the work and assignments that people are doing.
I couldn't
Instead of
agree
saying,
more.
write an essay and then, did you use AI or not? Instead, saying, no, please use AI, and this is how you should use it. And then I would like to see your essay at the end. That's how we have to be going in education.
I like that.
Because if not, like, we are doing a disservice to our students.
So old mentality, typical university curriculum without this is simply outdated, is your point.
100%. But it's not just as outdated. You're hurting people because when they get out, they'll have availability to these tools and they won't know how to use them, or once again, even think that they're bad. So rather, it's sort of like, it's like a parent never giving their child candy. And then suddenly when they turn 18, like, they get candy and then they get sick and diabetes. Instead, no, let's give them candy while they're growing up and realize, okay, here's a little bit. This is when you have it. You can have a little bit after you have your green beans, that type of thing where,
that happens though in the real world. I mean, that's a
right.
real thing. Or like, we're in this country, drinking. That's what happens.
Right. It's the same thing. It's like, yes, I mean, officially we're only supposed to drink when we're 21, but
Yeah.
if a 10-year-old wants to have a swig of a beer, sure, taste how bad it is. And, and
They're not gonna like it.
Right. And if you want to drink, then you can have one, but you need to make sure it's in front of dad or mom, So once again, let's not get into alcohol, but
No,
the
I know. It's
idea
just an
is,
example. Yeah.
it's just an example, but the idea is when we can create safe environments for people to use things, it just helps them later on in life when they have to then make choices and decisions and what to do.
Exactly.
It helps.
They're ready for it when the time is there for themselves. They haven't been pushing it away because their professors are telling them no AI in this class, do not use it. If you do, you're going to get a 0 in the class. Like, that threat creates anxiety, which creates like a total disconnect from what's actually out there. And then by the time they're graduated, they're like, I can't get a job because I don't know, I'm just still like
Use AI, right?
using Google or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're going to the library. I mean, I don't hate those things, but you need to have all the tools at your disposal. I mean, I can't imagine trying to figure out something in depth without at least prompting ChatGPT or something, because it gets me started. It doesn't get me all the way, but it gives me that like foundation to extend it beyond a thought. Okay, well, that's huge. I think education is definitely needs to figure this out soon, because it's becoming more obsolete by the year, in my opinion, if it's not doing this.
Agree. I was at a seminar, it was a year or two ago, and it was just crazy. And I was there presenting how I incorporate AI into the curriculum. But just crazy to hear some of these professors screaming out about like how bad it is. And like, it's just interesting, and I wonder what they're doing today.
That's what I mean. I mean, how can you just push it away? It's way bigger than you, first of all. And second of all, if you're not creative enough as an adjunct professor or anyone in any curriculum, you need to be creative, because I know you're using it. You would think the professor is using it in his own time to create maybe to create a subject. I'm sorry, something to do. Like maybe even a quiz or an exam or just any kind of thing to do. So yeah, just got to be more creative. That's the way to do it. Okay, so for people that want to find you and learn more about you and work with you, where can they?
Sure. So from a social media perspective, I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. So you can check me out there. I think you can get to my profile by going to dannygavin.me. As Optidge, which is my agency, you can get to there at optidge.com. And then my podcast, the Digital Marketing Mentor Podcast, you can find wherever you listen to podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and I'm really open. I love connecting. So if you have any questions, want to chat, I'm here for you.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, Danny, and hear about your story. It's very interesting, and I look forward to seeing how you guys grow throughout this crazy age of AI.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thank you for this awesome conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or really anywhere you get your podcasts. And maybe you can share it with someone you know that is either interested in business, interested in founder stories, kind of hearing the behind the scenes of why people do the things that they do, and just in general, good conversation. So be sure to subscribe and follow us everywhere.